being recorded and live streamed.
Okay. Thank you. That means it is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. I'm going to call this annual town meeting to order. Before we get started, I would like to thank John Carlson for his 8 years of service on the town board. I don't think this girl here.
She has hold.
Oh, here. Okay, well, good that she's not. 20 years of service as. And to welcome two people who don't know what they're getting into, maybe, but Samantha Dobson, welcome to the town board, and Kate Ross, welcome to the town board. So with that, move to the second item, which is our 2022 financial report. I believe that was included as an attachment to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the financial report?
I'll make any discussion. I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
The move to approve the financial report as presented and seconded. Is there any discussion about the 2022 financial report? Going once. Hearing none. All in favor of adopting the 2022 financial report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, item 3, minutes of the past 3 town meetings. We've got the annual town meeting from April 19th, 2022, the special town meeting from December 5th, 2022, and the special town meeting on February 10th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve all 3 minutes.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next couple of items we put on because we knew that people would be interested in these. And so rather than have sort of scattered questions about both the law enforcement agreement and the potential purchase of the third line, we just put those on the agenda for this meeting just for discussion. But as far as the updates on the claim against Ashland County, Michael Kupta is going to do that. Michael was just down in Madison testifying on Friday in front of the Department of Revenue on our claim to reallocate 135, well, more than that, 190 some thousand of Ashland County's levy and put it in the town's hands instead. And then after he's done, we'll take questions, if anybody has questions or comments on the law enforcement agreement, and then we'll move to the Harbor Commission. And Michael Childers, President of the Harbor Commission, is here. He's going to give a brief update on the status of that, and as well as at the end of his presentation, take questions. And then we will have our favorite topics from the people, in which you get to bring up anything pretty much that you would like. So without further ado, Michael.
Well, hello everybody. I'm just going to give a brief background. I know most of you have been at these kind of meetings before and probably know exactly what's going on, but just for those of you who aren't, just a refresher. So for 27 years, Ashland County has refunded tax money to the town of LaPointe to help LaPointe maintain a 24/7 police department. And when the first written agreement went into effect in 1995, the money that the county gave us back essentially paid for about half of the costs of our police department. Over the next 27 years, amounts went up, stayed the same, whatever. Eventually, toward the end, they started flatlining, and for the last several years, we received $135,000 a year, which toward the end was about a third of our costs for a police department. Last year, the county administrator decided, we didn't need the money as much as they needed the money. Their claim was that they were gonna use it to pay for raises for jailers. And so, the county board essentially was asked to zero us out a year ago when we couldn't have done anything to fill that gap in the budget. Glenn and I and others went to the county board and eventually persuaded them that was really bad policy and a bad move, and so they kept the money for all of 2022, but they did zero us out for 2023, and I'm not gonna go into everything that happened, but basically we gave them a proposal and they basically threw it in the trash can. So we started with no money from them for 2023. When the town meeting was called for the levy, town board had to really wrestle with, like, how much do we ask for or not ask for and all that kind of thing. So essentially the town board decided we were gonna try to get the money that we already paid Ashland County, we're gonna try to get some of that worth back for the community. And so the original budget for 2023 was, we were gonna pay for essentially a 24/5 police department from our end and expect Ashland County to cover 24/2. After about a month, it became pretty clear that that arrangement was not gonna work. We had additional money carried over from 2022 that we did not anticipate in December of 2022. And so the town board decided it was more important to really make sure we could keep the community safe with our own officers. So they rebudgeted and we now have 24/7 police coverage under our own control. In the meantime, we still continue to believe that we are paying for services we are not getting from the county. And so the law enforcement is the most obvious. And so we have taken 2 legal actions to try to get either the money back or get them to pay or provide for what we are paying for. So the first thing Glenn referred to, that was a petition to the Department of Revenue. And I'm trying not to get too technical here, but essentially, we are asking the Department of Revenue to transfer a portion of the county's tax levy back to the town, so it is under our control, under a state statute that says if a county transfers responsibility for a service to a municipality, if the service goes back to the municipality, the money should go back too. So we had a hearing last Friday down in Madison. Mike Anderson testified, current police chief Bill Defoe testified, I testified. Our attorneys think it went well. So, I'll take their word for it. They have a better sense of how it should go and should not go. And so they thought it went well. They have till May 5th to file their briefs, which are their final arguments in this case. And then there's 2 more weeks to reply to what the other side says. And the Department of Revenue has 180 days from some point to make a decision. If you've ever tried to read Wisconsin statute, it's not exactly written for people who speak English. And so my interpretation is they have 180, DOR has 180 days from when we first filed our petition, which was the end of January. So if that interpretation is correct, we would know something by the end of July. Otherwise, it'll be sometime in fall. So that's the first legal action we are pursuing. The second one is a claim against the county. It's a financial and constitutional claim. And essentially, what we are saying, so the town filed this and several individual property owners filed as well, just in case the court says the town itself does not have standing, because the town itself does not pay property taxes. It's actually individual people who do. So try to cover our bases that way. Essentially, in plain English, we are saying, 1, the county is violating state law by not providing the same level of law enforcement services to LaPointe that it is providing to all the other communities in Ashland County. And you've probably all seen the statistics that would suggest that our case is indeed true. Secondly, we are arguing that the county is violating the state constitution for taxing us for law enforcement but not providing those services. So we are seeking, since this is a claim, we are seeking $363,654.63, which is the proportion that LaPointe property owners pay to the county for sheriff's patrols. So that's what our claim is. And actually, the county board is supposed to take up our claim next Tuesday. And based on how the agenda is written, they're going to deny it, which is no surprise. But if they actually do it on Tuesday, and I say if because they had it on their agenda once before and took it off, but if they actually do it on Tuesday, then it's up to the town board to decide whether to sue the county in circuit court. So those are the updates on the two legal actions. So now you are up to speed. And before I surrender the floor, I will just make a shameless plug. Lawyers cost money. So we have set up a legal fund. If anybody wants to, spend their Easter money or something like that to help us pay for lawyers, we would appreciate it. Write it out to the town of LaPointe. And in the case that the island is so generous that we have more money than the lawyers can use, we will give it back to you all on a proportional basis.
Thank you,
So I'll
Michael.
take any questions. Otherwise, that's where we are.
Are there any questions for Michael? Yes, Mary.
You said that there was extra money at the end of 2022 unanticipated that you are putting into the law enforcement budget to cover the 24/7. Is that for the whole 2023 or just a portion of 2023?
It should be for a Barb Nelson would know that specifically, but it should cover us for all of 2023. What we do in future years is something we're all gonna have to talk about because the DOR asked, what happens, if we don't get this money. And the reality is, as a town, we are paying $400,000 to support our own police department and $364,000 to support the LaPointe or the Ashland County Sheriff's Patrol. That's not sustainable long-term. We're paying twice for services and not getting what we're paying for. So that's not sustainable. That's something we as a community are gonna have to figure out how to deal with long-term. But we should be good for 2023.
Any other questions from Michael?
Well, if not tonight, you know how to reach me.
Question,
Ron.
is this a precedent? I mean, it's not,
What is
this kind of a case, this must have happened.
Not really. There are, according to the Wisconsin Towns Association, there are about a half dozen cases pending now in which somebody is transferring service, one level of government is transferring services to another level of government, and, they're fighting about who gets to keep the money. Because the way current statute is written, it's a zero-sum game. The money goes from one to the other. There's actually a proposal in the governor's budget where if that happened, the levy would transfer to, in this case, from the county to the town, but the county could keep that $135,000 on its levy, but it would have to levy it to all the other communities in Ashland County, just not us. So it wouldn't be a zero-sum game, which might make, the municipalities more willing to actually agree on what was going on.
Thank you. Any other questions for Michael on the law enforcement? Okay.
Just thank you for your diligence.
Oh.
It's
It-
very critical to
It's,
us.
it's great that the town has rallied around this. I mean, it really is, and it's sometimes fun doing this.
And we have gotten
Yeah.
contributions to our legal fund, so thank you for those. And, it is not sustainable. We were fortunate that this year there was additional money found at the end of the year that we hadn't expected. You can't count on that every year. If we don't get this money from Ashland County, and we talked about this when we had the levy meeting last year, we'd have to ask for a raise in the levy. Susan?
Are you at liberty to say where we found it, which
Barb is very conservative in estimating how much cash she's going to have at the end of the year. And it's a question of how conservative has she been? And what things did she, planned for that didn't happen. And so that's really, it's something that, as John, who's been on the board a long time, can say, we've been fortunate that we've usually been able to count on something. So that's what happened.
Yeah, Susan, I mean, the short version is, we have to kind of do these projections in October, and so you're trying to figure out what it's gonna cost to do things over 3 months, and sometimes those happen, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're in your favor, sometimes they're not. And I think this year was also, our new auditor wants us to switch from cash basis accounting to accrual, and so I think that had something to do with things.
All right, let us now move on, if everyone is ready, to hearing from Michael Childers and what is going on with the Harbor Commission.
Seems like this is a good place to start.
Yeah, you can see
I
everybody,
can see everybody.
except for the people we see all the time. So.
I'm sorry, Samantha. I should point out the other members of the Harbor Commission, so you're all aware of who they are. We have Mike Anderson, Michael Collins, Evan Erickson Jr., Zach Montaigne, Carol Neubauer, who serves as the Vice President, Pete Ross, and myself, and Laura Berteau, there's one, is the Commission Secretary. Michael Collins. Everyone. I know, it's Anderson. So for the past 5 months, the commission has been active, and it's taken us a long way toward our objectives of securing agreements to, one, purchase the assets of the Matalona Ferry Line, and to continue to operate a safe, predictably scheduled, and affordable ferry service. Those are our 2 principal objectives. And if you read the Gazette, which most people here do, you probably know that we've secured assistance. We needed to define a purchase agreement, and that has required lawyers for the transaction, maritime requirements, property and vessel appraisers, as well as municipal finance counsel. Also through the Gazette and other media stories, you're probably aware that we've applied to the United States Department of Transportation for a RAISE grant, which is Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. And that application was for $11 million. It was delivered on February 28th, and we had bipartisan support politically from over 20 federal, state, local elected officials. So we're very grateful for that bipartisan support. And the winners of this competitive process, it's a competitive process, will be announced no later than June 30th. With the help, forthcoming help and helpful cooperation with MIFL, we're now at a stage where 2 critical elements of the Harbor Commission's work are coming together, and that is a negotiated price and understanding the extent of potential federal purchase assistance. Those 2 elements will determine the extent of debt and the mechanisms best designed to service it, if any. It's still not enough question. At no point is it our intent or expectation to put debt on the shoulders of island taxpayers. Rather, we look to operations to fund whatever borrowing amount we select. Recently, we've been encouraged by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to develop an understanding of ongoing income sources available to Wisconsin publicly owned transportation authorities. And this has great potential to significantly strengthen operating resources in the years ahead. And we're anticipating meeting with the Department of Transportation in the weeks ahead. Additionally, with the support of Senator Tammy Baldwin, the Harbor Commission has also completed an application requesting financial assistance through congressionally directed spending. It's what used to be called airlines. You will call it one way for a while, but now it's back to congressionally directed spending. This request will be presented to Congress in its deliberations of the 2024 federal budget in October. And there are a few certainties in the process, but it could conclude with the delivery of a new source, independent of the RAISE grant, of revenue to help underwrite the cost of the purchase agreement. So we've got a RAISE grant for $11 million and congressionally directed spending for $11 million. And it would be our hope, and hope is the word used, that through those two mechanisms, we can make a material difference on what our purchase is going to be. I need to take a moment to thank the town board for loaning us startup and administrative money. In November, we asked the governor, Governor Evers, to put $200,000 in the state budget for this year to reimburse the town this assistance. And I'm happy to report that both State Senator Quinn and Assemblymember Green have simultaneously introduced budget motions supporting this $200,000 startup funding. April and May are the months that are scheduled for the Joint Finance Committee at the state level to present its budget recommendations. It's scheduled to complete the process in June, followed by the governor's signature in July, but that's always a question. So let me say the obvious. The Harbor Commission is within a couple of months, and the end of June is an important date, of learning much that will influence our purchase and its financing decisions. Soon after, we'll be able to give you the terms for both, but in the meantime, you can expect to hear from us as things change. I'm happy to take questions. Details I can't talk about. We operate under a non-disclosure agreement with the ferry line to protect their business interests. And until we understand the financing structure, we won't really know how to put this together, but that's coming very soon. So, questions?
Anybody invited Transportation Secretary or Pete to the end?
He had been invited in a couple of the letters. Congressman Tiffany invited him specifically to come see Madeline Island, part of the jewel of the Apostle Islands here in Wisconsin. So there have been invitations extended. And this grant is discretionary, which is a very interesting word. It's $1.5 billion, but it's a national competition.
And
Any
any
other-
idea how many applicants there were for this?
I have no idea. I think that eventually there's a process that they go through to rate across the metrics, and at some point they'll start to release information. It may be at the end of who applied, and then obviously who got granted, but I have no idea. You can go on the Department of Transportation website and look at the 2022 grant recipients and get a flavor for the kinds of things that were done. But I suspect we're not going to be, because we're not a highway.
Just want to say thanks for all your work.
It's a pleasure, and the commissioners are working very hard. Pete is leading the charge on negotiating the operating agreement, and Carol is doing the work on negotiating the purchase agreements for the assets and for the real estate.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions? Okay, well, hopefully that was informative. And now, the moment we've been waiting for, topics from the people. Anything anybody cares to talk about? Michaela?
I just have a brief letter from Jim Peters, who couldn't be here tonight. Town of LaPointe, please consider extending the sidewalk around the corner of Main Street and Big Bay Road. This would provide a safe path for people walking across this corner instead of having to walk into the street. Also consider installing a section of sidewalk at the rec center from the handicap parking spaces to the picnic shelter. This would bring us in compliance with the ADA requirements. Thank you, Jim Peters.
Thank you. And there, John?
I'm just wondering when audio video equipment's going to be installed so people can watch at home and hear the meetings.
Michael?
So, John, nothing's changed. We still need to get breaker boxes installed in the basement and additional electrical run and outlets up there for AV and for power. And so the electrician we thought was going to be able to do this has not been able to do it on a timely basis. So I'll be happy to talk to them.
Okay, thank you, John.
On that note, was there, when we signed that contract, was there a deadline?
For installation,
Companies from Madison that no deadline?
we've already purchased the equipment, and it's just a matter of they're waiting for us to have the infrastructure installed so that they can do the equipment installation.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anybody? Cindy?
It is my understanding, I know that money is tight, but it's my understanding that in the last 8 years or maybe longer, our town board supervisors and our chair have not received any kind of increase in their monthly stipend. And I'm wondering, I understand it's our responsibility as a community to actually suggest a pay raise for them, that they can't give themselves raises. So I suggest, or maybe it's time for us to consider, giving them a possible 2024 budget season, start with thinking about the 2024 budget and give them a possibly 15 to 20% raise. And maybe even a few years after that, increase their pay. We want to encourage new and bright and young faces to run for town board, and I think we need to make up for some of that lapse in time.
Go ahead, Michaela.
I just would like to point out that, if such a thing were to happen, it wouldn't go in effect right away. It would be the next election cycle, so, Sue and Michael's positions could get a raise next year, if it were to be voted to do that. And then it wouldn't, for the other 3 positions, it wouldn't happen now for 2 years, because they were just elected and started now. So it has to be a decision without people in those seats. So it will be for the next election cycle.
Thanks, Michaela.
That's another discussion. Can we hear what the wage structure is right now?
Sure. Currently, town board members receive $400 a month, and the town chair receives $650 a month. They also receive $40 for the attending a board of review meeting. There's one of those. A year ago, the townspeople approved an increase for the town clerk and for the town treasurer. The town clerk went to $1,870 a month, and the town treasurer to $907.50 a month. I think that was a 10% increase. But again, as Michaela pointed out, even though that was adopted a year ago, it took effect today. So that's how that works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, this has to be brought up in an annual town budget meeting, correct?
Today is the meeting that it can come up with. If we brought it up at a levy meeting, it would actually have to be on the agenda at a special meeting. So this is a meeting that it can be brought up. Michael?
I'd like to also, Cindy mentioned it's been 8 years since they've had a raise. And 8 years ago, the town board had, usually 2 meetings a month? And now you're having a lot more than that, between your regular meetings and special meetings and the whole thing with the county. So you're doing a lot more work now than 8 years ago without a raise. So I'd like to point that out, right?
Well, again, I think it may have been longer than 8 years. Frankly, I think it's been maybe
Okay,
like 15 or 20
But in
years.
terms of how much time supervisor spends now, as opposed to 8 or 10 or however long ago it was, you guys do a lot more work now than then. And if this is the appropriate meeting to bring it up, other than bringing it up, like we are, is there anything that should be moved?
Well, we need
or-
a motion, if there's, a motion would be germane, but it needs to be specific. And then it needs a second, and then we can have further discussion and a vote. Everyone who's an elector can vote on this. Yeah, this is not a town board. The town board cannot actually increase its pay. Mike?
It can be brought up at the November annual meeting with budgets and things, right?
Well, the town board doesn't have the authority. It would have to be at a special meeting.
A special meeting, but at that budget meeting in
December.
Yeah. When you're looking at the budgets for next year.
It could be.
But that would affect the amount of the levy. The people would have to approve it, and then the levy would have to change.
Right, and it
So it makes sense to do it now instead of wait until.
So now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's
Michael
gonna take
Collins?
that long.
Michael Collins?
If it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a 20% increase in the compensation for the board.
Board and chair. So four
And
board-
chair,
four,
yeah.
I'll second that. Debbie?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No, I have a whole different subject.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
One, two opposed.
Any other opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Cindy. Other, and Michael, other matters that, yes?
I just wonder if the town is looking at all at doing any improvements long-term to North Shore Road. I know this is an unusual winter, but it's in really, really bad shape. As you probably know, there's one of the culverts washed out right by Benjamin there. So basically, it's just one direction. It's just getting awful rutted up, and I don't know, if we need to do like a traffic count, just so we know how much wear and tear the road's getting these days, and start looking at the cost of whether it's paving or other improvements versus the cost right now. It must be pretty high to keep the road, maintain it right now, the constant grading, having to fill all these culverts in and that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering if it's time to start looking at those kind of issues with commercial road. I know in the past there was some talk about paving, and that was back before we moved up here, but it's getting pretty bad. And,
Conversely, not that many years ago, there was a dust issue, and so there was some agreement for keeping the dust down that some of the property owners alleged wasn't being met. So we've got too much rain, not enough rain, too much, too dry, too muddy. Probably trying to address the issue deeply.
Good point. And I know a little bit of the history, probably Mike Anderson knows a whole lot more, but I know that there has been over the years discussion about paving. I think that at one point there was actually even an engineering study done with a cost estimate, which was.
May I just interject? I believe it was in 2007, and at that time it was roughly $8 million.
And there were also, on top of the cost, I think that there was at least a perception of a split in whether the people who lived along there wanted it paved or didn't want it paved.
the summer people don't seem to care. They don't have to put up with it.
Okay.
But we're taking a little bit so we can share in our opinion.
Oh, good, good. We'll try to live stream them.
Yeah, don't plow it until they all get here.
Okay. That is a worthwhile subject, and I'll see if we can't figure out a way to address that maybe this summer.
I mean, just as Ben said, I think it was, you said 2007, when the county repaved Highway H, we had an asphalt plant at the airport. And we thought that would be the time to use the plant that would be here anyway to try and pave it. And the majority of the people on North Shore Road did not want it paved. But again, that was when the plant was gonna be here anyway, and the cost would be a lot less than having to bring a plant in. But
might be worth revisiting.
I would think the population changed.
Real quick, I just want to throw in too, I want to compliment the road crews that, you know, the guys work hard out there and they do they're out there plowing during the summer and they keep it about as smooth as you can.
And with
their road, so they do a good job. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't getting after them, but it's just, just seems to be a wear and tear and they can't really keep all right.
Yeah, there's not much they can do to fight Mother Nature, and this year, record snow.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable how clean they've kept the roads, so thank you.
issue with the culverts and multiple washouts is that we're cycling through most of those culverts that were made 20 to 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And as you could see maybe from the ones that
Yeah.
washed out, the bottoms are completely gone.
I saw that, yeah, there's all about it. Any time frame when you're gonna get that thing fixed?
It was actually supposed to be today. Nature had other ideas. If we can, I hope before this weekend, but it really depends on the amount of rain we get. As soon as possible.
All right, that's cool, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes,
I just had a question about what's the progress with the rec center, and once it is done, what the plans are for operating or using that building?
Harry Nelson.
Yeah,
The building has been completed, and as soon as, again, nature had other plans this week, but as soon as the weather allows, we will be opening those bathrooms for the foreseeable future. I hope until November, since there is a heat pump in both of the rooms, and it's open for rentals. There's multiple rentals scheduled already, and definitely be much appreciated by everybody to have larger functional new bathrooms downtown. So as soon as possible, they will be open.
so the bathrooms and then the other side of the building, which I haven't seen in 100 years, that's available for rental, like for a picnic party kind of thing?
Yep, it's essentially the same as it was before, just slightly smaller, just an open rec room, tables and chairs, or whatever you want it to be.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I have one more. The dog park that was talked about, is there any progress there?
That's going to the TPC right now.
Okay.
That'll be a TPC question. Because they don't know if, they need to see if the spot that they've asked for, if it's wetland or to get setbacks, blah, blah, blah. That's what that's where that.
Until next season, is there any chance we could use a tennis court?
I have. My husky used to run there, but I couldn't run him somewhere else. As long as you clean up after.
Yeah, as long as you clean up after something.
I've had friends that yelled at for using that space. as
Oh,
like
really?
Space for dogs to run inside. Yeah.
Whoops.
By the police, so. I
Oh,
don't
by
know.
the police?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I gotta wait with something.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Robin?
You're talking about North Shore Road, is that, if you don't pave it, is it just a matter of gravel?
Right.
Just more gravel, and culverts. And culverts.
Right.
And then you'd have to, you buy a big pile of it ahead and pay for it.
Well, we did, 15 years ago, or something, we bought 10 years worth of gravel.
It's on
Yeah,
I have a question for Ben. At what point is it feasible or recommended to move from the steel culverts to concrete?
just maybe PVC.
Concrete, or
Yeah, from the big culverts.
the concrete ones would take longer to install or much more expensive, whereas the smoothbore plastic ones that we're putting in now should last longer than I'm gonna be alive, and they can move more, the volume of water, increasing the volume of water, so.
And then the weight of traffic, we're looking at electric vehicles being twice as heavy as what we have now.
As long as there's enough cover, there's definitely enough cover, road cover, they're not affected.
Are they bigger around?
Sorry.
Diameter?
There's, we are, some of the problem areas that we've seen fail over and over, replacing something that's slightly larger in diameter. But again, they can, the smooth inside can move massively more amount.
Well,
of
the
water.
stuff doesn't get stuck in there.
I don't know, those beavers are pretty industrious.
Okay, Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you all. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.